Hey, good afternoon everybody. Today I'm going to show you how to make candy cane cookies. One thing I should point out is these are a sugar cookie that are shaped like candy canes. They're not made with candy cane powder or taste like candy canes. But they come out as a pretty sturdy cookie, and the egg wash helps with that. Right? And if you're ambitious and you have no pets, you can even hang them on the tree if you want to, but they're probably going to get a little tough after a day or so. I'm using my stand mixer for these. You can either use a hand mixer. It's a lot of work if you're going to do it by hand, but it's still doable. So first thing to do is cream the shortening and the butter together. So once you got both of those in there, just lock it down, start it on low. So it's creamed enough for the first bit. But what I do is I try to just, it's kind of hard to stop it that you get the beater right at the back, but it's a lot easier to add stuff if you can. So next I'll put in the powdered sugar, the icing sugar, or confectioner's sugar, as it's called in some places. Let the smoke from that settle down. And yeah, you do want to put the white sugar in immediately after, because if not, it just gets too powdery. Again on low. Once that's not giving off powder anymore, you can turn it up a bit. So once it looks like the sugars are mixed in and starting to get creamy, you can add the eggs and the extracts. So once that's all in, start it again on slow. I do scrape down the bowl once to get everything really uniform for this. So once everything is creamed together nicely there, just set the wet ingredients to the side for the time being. You're going to start with 2½ cups of flour. So add the salt and the baking powder. Mix that in well by hand. Add the wet ingredients to that. Mix that in well with a spatula. Once that's mixed in quite well, add the other, sprinkle on the other ½ a cup of flour. And making sure your hands are clean first, get in there with your hands. And just work it to break it up like you were doing a pie crust. So once you've got all the dry flour picked up, but the dough is too short and just still does not hold together, that's when you're going to get the cold water out. So get a glass of water as cold as you can get from the tap, or you can even use ice water if you want, and just a regular tablespoon from the cupboard, and put on a couple of spoons of water and work that in. The dough will get a little sticky at first. But then should become workable again and not sticky. That, I think, will take at least one more tablespoon. Be very cautious here now because you don't want it to get too sticky. The point is to get a dough that holds together that you can roll by hand. Because you have to remember, you've got to be working in the food coloring as well. So the dough has got to be quite soft. So it's just about right there. I'm just going to let that sit and rest for a bit. If you did put a little bit too much water in it, sprinkling that I'm putting here isn't going to hurt anything. What you do is sprinkle on about a teaspoon of flour at a time and just work that in until it's still workable but not sticky. This looks to me to be just right. So either you can weigh it and cut it, but we're just making cookies here, so I'm just going to eyeball it and split the dough. Put that part in, just leave that on a plate for now. This is wet enough, you don't even have to worry about covering it. I'm going to start with the red, and I'll put on 3 or 4 drops at the beginning, and we'll see what we get. Well, it's kind of pinkish, but I don't think that's got enough color in it. So I'm going to put 5 or 6 more. If there's any splattered up the bowl, make sure you pick it up, because all of it should be in the dough. You will have to give it a quick wipe, but it shouldn't really affect the color of the other dough. That's not quite red enough yet, so yeah, let's go 3 or 4 more. Oops. Okay, I'm happy with that, so I'm gonna give the bowl a quick rinse here and start with the green. So I got my bowl clean and dry here, and the other half of the dough. And I know this is probably going to take at least 6 or 8, so I'll just start with that. So this is a good time to check your color, and I also went and grabbed the other half of the dough so I could just compare them next to each other and see if that looks like a good color contrast. It's looking pretty good to me. The red is a little darker, but I think that's okay because it kind of really makes it show that it's two-toned. Next, I'm going to get the cookie sheets ready. Now, when I first tested these, I used it without parchment. However, a couple of them stuck a bit, which caused them to break, and after all this work, no, you don't want any of these to break. Plus, if you are using an egg wash, which I do recommend, they just look nicer, it will definitely stick to your sheets if you don't use parchment. Unless you're very adept with a spatula and you get them the instant they come out of the oven. But honestly, parchment is just so good to have around. I really do recommend this part. So now we're getting ready to put them together. We've got the 2 balls of dough. So this is going to make 12 cookies. So what I do first, I work with a bit at a time. I just visually estimate them and break each colored piece into 4 pieces, and then each one, of course, will do 3. Just leave one there. Do the same thing for the other piece of dough. They will be easier to work with if you leave them in balls instead of breaking them all up at the beginning, because then they'll dry out more than they have to at the beginning. And I do leave the little plate on the side here to keep the spare ones that I'm working with. So this, you tear off into 3. Do the same with the other one. And you're just eyeballing the size of these. I mean, they're homemade cookies. If they're slightly different sizes, it doesn't really matter, right? So take each ball and just start rolling it out. Into a strip that's, well, this cutting board I think is a foot, so I'd say 10-12 inches, whatever's easiest to work with. And do the same with the other one. Now if you're going to bump it, you can just move the other one up. Now if you see that they're going to start to crack a bit, just roll over that bit. So you can start with red over green or green over red, it doesn't really matter, whatever you like. What you should do is pinch the ends together. Okay. Do not try to pick these up. You're going to just have unnecessary breakage for nothing. Just pick up the whole strip, and you can shape the top of the cane as you go if you want. And then pick that up and pick up the green. See, that one broke right there. We'll get back to that at the end of the cookie. Because the nice part about this dough is it's so soft if you work with one strip at a time. Well, actually, you know what? Those worked out to be just the same size. So what I'll do is I'll just save this on the side in case I need it for another cookie. And what you're going to do is give them a good hook here. Now if you want, you can just pin that underneath, but you don't want a huge knob of dough. And then very carefully pick up the completed cookie and put it on your baking sheet. You will need both hands for this. So there's the cookie, and I'll do another one and you'll see how it'll go in the other way. So I have the second one done here, and give that a little bit more of a twist that you can do halfway through. Don't push them together, they will bake together, don't worry about it. Now, to minimize handling here, I'm just going to spin the cutting board, because that way I don't have to pick it up and turn it. I just have to pick it up, and when I place it on the cookie sheet, you can see that it's nestled in to the other one. So now I'll get the rest of them ready. So here's the first tray done before I apply the egg wash, which I do right at the last minute before it goes in. So both trays are done here. I took the egg back out of the fridge. Yes, I did put it in the fridge in the meantime. So to make the egg wash, just crack an egg in a bowl. After you got your egg in the bowl there, just get a spoon of water or so and whip that up with a fork till it's nice and even. And if you are going to do the egg wash, yes, you do need a pastry brush. You can get some pretty cheap ones. I mean, obviously not this one, but if you can get like a plastic one with you know, plastic fibers for a couple of bucks at the dollar store, I think. because it just doesn't put on if you haven't got one of these. Let's just get in here. Yeah, so get your brush and just make sure that any excess is off the side of the bowl, and then following the line of the cookie, just lightly brush it with the egg wash. As you can see, it's already showing a bit of a gloss here, even before it goes in. But this is why you can see that you need the parchment paper, because I'll end up peeling these off after, because whatever rolls off the cookie is going to stick to the sheet and will bake crispy dry, but on a sheet without parchment it's going to be pretty hard to get these off with the egg wash if you're not using parchment, which is the reason I said it was optional. So the oven's all set there, preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Now let's put both trays in there. And this will bake for 15 minutes. So it's been 15 minutes. Time to look at the cookies. Oh yeah. So there is what they look like hot out of the oven. Now, if you'll notice, there are a couple of melds here. Most of them are fine. So what I am going to do is I'm going to get a sharp knife and I'm going to separate the cookies while they're still hot, because if you try this when they're cold, they will break. So I've had these cooling on the back porch. They're cool enough to transfer. One thing I should say is if you are planning to use these for Christmas ornaments, do let them cool off considerably longer than an hour or two. You definitely want these to firm up enough that they won't break under their own weight, which means that you should probably let them dry out for a day or two. So there's my candy cane cookies. I hope you like them. I hope you try them. Just a couple of notes on here. If you want to play around with the food coloring, a couple of variations you could do is like just do red and the other one plain, or do green and plain. You might want to darken up the food coloring. If you've got a problem with additives, just leave it out completely. And I would do a double egg gloss then in that case and let them maybe brown up a little more. As you can see, yes, you can hang these if you want. Merry Christmas.